It only took a matter of hours for the lounge to collapse into a raging typhoon of ice. The building itself still stood, although the integrity was slowly fading with every creak and groan of the walls. There was not a single warm place left in the frozen fortress. Every surface either coated with ice or freezing under the snow and frost. Everest had to trudge through the avalanche that invaded the hallway with great difficulty. Pushing her nose through the debris and crystallized water, she fell through on the other side, tumbling into the slippery floor. Shaking off the snow herself, the husky charged down the corridors as fast as her weary legs could carry her. She was grateful to be under the stable roof again, having passed through the site of the roof collapse, but the water damage had already painted the ground underneath with a shining glaze. "Dwayne, where is it?" she said out loud, praying that her partner was still functioning. The creature, where is it?" "Lobby," came her companion's response, still loyally on his place within the security room. "It's breaking more windows, every single one it can find. But it's pretty far from you right now, so you should be okay." They went back and forth for a few moments. It felt like an agonizing game of chess. Yes, Everest barely able to take 2 steps forward before the monster decides to journey through the vents. Not a single shred of progress could be made without straining amounts of observation. At times, Dwayne's delayed response caused even more anxiety to Everest than the actual creature hunting them did. He couldn't either give her a perfectly timed response. The Dane always stuttered or felt unsure of himself or just simply didn't reply immediately. Like a ghost of the creature drifted throughout the freezing lounge. It moved like a serpent, appearing one on the camera only to vanish into the next within mere seconds. Dwayne was sweating bullets in his chair, trying to keep up with it, gluing his bloodshot vision to the screens, his frantic game of hide and seek. Several times his barks of panic were audible through the radio, the Dane sounding an alarm that the creature had gone into the vents. Those cursed vents, the ultimate blind spots with no way to keep track of it until it reemerged. The first time the creature crawled into them nearly led to his own death, and it wouldn't be the last. 3 times did the monster beeline for him, scampering like mad through the guts, seeking to jump Dwayne from above. It got painstakingly close for the 3rd time, and the Dane hiding with only a millisecond to spare. The game was taking its toll on them. Dwayne's mind had threatened to crack under the overload of information, the overwhelming him so fiercely with the single nose in his ears that could send him into a breakdown. Everest was struggling through the exhausted body, her chest and muscles tightening from the freezing extenuation. Still refused to give up, but a voice in her mind was second-guessing her decision in regard to her life. "I'm almost there," she called along, jumping out of her hiding place. "Just one more turn." The dog raced ahead. "Come on, Jake, please be there," came her desperate pleas, floating into the chill air. The hallway felt endless, but soon she jumped through the doorway to her destination. Everest skidded into the room, her heart seemingly near exploding inside her. The entrance to the safe room stood before her, perfectly disguised in such a way that no patron would ever suspect. The room appeared to be nothing more than a dusty corner of the building, housing an old humming vending machine against the wall, a few isolated tables lined with the far wall near it, followed by the glistened ice racks of forgotten ski equipment. The drink machine was completely legit and able to dispense any bottle of cola if it wasn't actually flooded of ice, locking up its circuits. It was the area behind the machine where magic happened, a hidden latch that pushed the drink dispenser aside with a wheezing groan, exposing a wide passage to the perfectly secure safe room. It was difficult to recognize the drink dispenser due to the thick sheet of frost beating down on it from the vent above. Trudging through the snow forming on the ground, the husky made a haste to the side of the machine, eyeing the edge up and down for a familiar handle. Come on, she gritted her teeth, struggling to see through the clouded air. She was beyond vulnerable, standing directly under the vent opening, and every second spent underneath it tugged at her nerves. "There," she said, spotting a tiny handle still hiding underneath the sheet of frost. Never had Everest seen the thought that she would have had to work against the thing she loved most. Grabbing it in her paws, she tugged through the latch down as hard as she could. It didn't budge. She grunted, tugging the latch down with all her might. No, 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 no! Her paws scratched the ground as she called all of her might forward. Dwayne, she grunted in extenuation. The mechanism is frozen. What? It means the fucking cold broke the secret door, Everest barked, boiling aggravation rising within her. I'm locked out. With one final tug with everything she had, the frozen handle only silently mocked her efforts. The puppy lost her grip, tumbling backwards into the snow. No, no, not like this, came a surge of panic. The husky watching her only hoped to freeze in front of her. No! She tried again, grabbing it tightly as she could. Every attempt she made ended the same, humiliating way. Hysteria broke into her, bleeding desperation as she fought with her life against the frozen machine. God damn it, she snarled, pounding her paws into the wall with all the anger she could muster. It bled away slowly, her fire dying as the husky pathetically fell backwards into the snow. Dwayne heard the entire thing unfold over the radio. Everest, it's hopeless, the husky cried, voice breaking as she stared up at the vent. It's no use. We've lost. No, we haven't. We have to try another way. Another way? Everest lashed, kicking the snow across the room. There is no other way. It only has one door. One way in. Well, the Dane stuttered, flinching at his friend's rage. What if we could break through somehow? Break through? Didn't half of the building just rupture from the water pressure? Dwayne said, pleading she was listening. What if we could do the same thing? Bust through the wall using the water? How would we even do that? The pipes are already blue. They can't explode twice. What about the fire sprinklers? The fire... Everest twisted her expression, briefly baffled at Dwayne's suggestion. The fire sprinklers? Was he truly an idiot? The sprinklers were just connected to the pipes that were all others were. How in the world would they be useful? The husky trailed off, looking up at the single, minuscule sprinkler that sat headed on idle on the ceiling. The longer she stared at the tiny piece of metal, the more her mind began to turn, slowly pacing the pieces together until a picture formed in her mind. She squinted up at it. Wait a second. She paused. The pipes around the lounge ruptured because water struggled to travel through their ice-filled tunnels. But the sprinklers were different. The pipes connected to them were stationary, tightly sealed from the rest of the pipes until the sprinkler heads were activated by the fire. They were just as frozen as the rest of them, but the pressure that fractured the rest of the pipes never reached the emergency sprinklers due to its unique methods of receiving its water, meaning it was still intact. Even if the particle of smoke or fire glazed the sprinkler head, the pipes would unlock all at once, forcing hundreds of gallons of water at the immeasurable pressure through its ice-filled passage. It was only the thing she could think of, the only plan she had left. Dwayne, Everest exclaimed, staring up at her last hope. We need to trip the sprinklers. I agree, but how are we going to make a fire in an environment like this? You don't need a fire to trip the sprinklers. Everest jumped up, determination surging through her veins. Her eyes darted in every direction, searching for the room what she needed. A month ago, Rocky told me of an incident that occurred down in Adventure Bay. She scanned the floor up and down, checking every corner with a hardened gaze. Marshall and Chase were playing in the lookout and they got out of hand. Come on, she fought desperately. There had to be something. Anything. Marshall kicked the ball a little too hard and it struck one of the fire sprinklers in most perfect way possible. She almost laughed at the memory, powerful resolve fueling her every step. The whole tower was flooded down the elevator, and the water damage was almost too much to handle. There it was, a wooden beam that had fallen from the ceiling, likely snapped in its place once the ceiling had just collapsed in just the previous hallway. The debris had flung in all directions, placing the exact tools she needed right where she needed it. Grabbing the plank of wood in her teeth, she lunged it up with all of her strength she had left. It wasn't considerably heavy, but her teeth were painfully pressing into her gums from the force of carrying it. powering it through the resisting weight of the desk of a weapon. Everest dragged herself up one of the tables, nearly slipping on its blankets of ice. Fury charged with her every action, agonizing memories of the horror she witnessed turning into a raw drive. She toiled forwards as if she were shoveling a boulder uphill, pulling herself on top of the vending machine, almost stumbling from the unbalanced weight of her plank. The husky was only a few feet from the ceiling now. She could turn her head and stare down at the taunting sprinkler head dangling from the ceiling. This wasn't going to be kind to her jaws, her mind warned her swiftly, but she cared a little too much for things anymore. Narrowing her eyes at the target, she kneeled her paws to steady herself. Jumping with all the force she could bring forward, Everest leapt off the machine, holding back the weapon and swinging in her arc. A clang of impact sounded through the air, and a painful shock traveled through her weapon and struck her teeth with full force, hitting the floor. Unceremoniously, the husky collapsed onto her stomach, the plank falling out of her jaws and landed somewhere away. Tiny clinks of noise tickled her ears, sounded of the fire sprinklers smashed into metal pieces. Flinging its bits onto the floor, her spun with a twisting pain, vision clouding over with audible groans leaving her maw. Her weakened state, Everest looked up at damage. Not a single drop of water came out fraction. "Dwayne," she barely said, "there's no water coming out." "No, there has to be," the Dane said sharply. "The nozzle itself is frozen shut, but surely you still tripped it. The water has to be coming through the pipes and fast. I think that ceiling's about to blow." "What?" Everest tried to stand, her body straining from the impact. Dwayne's voice filled with alarm. "Do you know how much velocity those things shoot out water? If the normal pipes took out the entire walls, then you need to get out of there and no." His voice cut off, seemingly dropping a dime. "Huh? Dwayne?" The husky looked down at her collar. "Dwayne, what happened?" No response. "Dwayne, answer me!" She barked into the radio. A low rumbling was gently emitting from the ceiling. Pawing at the radio, she repeatedly called for his name, but to no avail. She tried turning the radio off and on again. She tried reconfiguring the signal. She even tried calling the security office, what little remained of her spare phone. Unease rose in every second, and she went on without hearing his voice, the puppy pacing around in frosted room, endlessly calling Dwayne's name. The creature couldn't have snatched him. She would have heard it over the line. It almost felt like he had hung up on her. But why would he do that out of all things? It was one of the worst things they ever do, breaking their communication, swooning in discomfort. The puppy, Everest, would only come to the final solution, a scenario she couldn't believe. Someone had remotely severed their connection. The room was churning with bubbling echoes in all directions, fiercely poured water ramming through the icy caverns with such a velocity yet the pipes struggled to keep together. "What?" Panic flared through the puppy, her sense of direction slipping. "What's happening?" Then, like a ghost appearing in the darkness, a brand new voice connected to her radio. A voice that she never heard before in her entire life. "Remain calm." The hardened voice, authoritative tone. The speaker was completely deprived of emotion, talking to her as if there were no mindless fish. Everest jumped in surprise at the new presence. Who's this? Who's talking to me? Where's Dwayne?" She backed up into the wall, not noticing the drips of water facing from the wallpaper. "Listen to me," the voice commanded. "You and your friend are now the sole property of the Archline Foundation," they growled. "Do not leave the premises. We are coming to extract you and secure the Mentagara creature." "What?" The mystery speaker was audibly losing their patience. "Do not bring harm to our assets. The Mentagara is not to be harmed, defaced, or damaged under any circumstances. We are coming to get you. Do not resist us." The connection flicked off, fully deactivating the radio in the process. There was no hope of reaching Dwayne now. The husky spiraled in confusion, pacing all around the room. "Wait, don't leave me alone in here!" came her frantic yell. The world dimmed to silence around her, churning anxiety clouded in her mind. Only her breathing seemed to echo to her ears, rapid panic locking up her body and thinking, until the silence was broken. A gator-like snarl sounded in her ears, followed by a furious roar, tearing through the air. Everest turned at the sound, only the collapsed hallway, flooded with the blizzard, her eyes seeing absolutely nothing, then unforgettable, horrifying nothing. The Mentagara stood up on the top of the pile of frozen debris, shaking with a gritted rage as it stared down at the husky. Everest knew it was there, and the creature might have been invisible, but incoming winter above was gradually painting its body with frost. A gentle outline of the snow coated the monster, exposing its form to the prey. A hissing jaw of teeth were glazed with glistening ice, snowflakes sparkling on its elonged body. Two snake-like tails, ending in sharpened spearheads, were shining with the water, aching to mix the white and red. Four legs scrunched in their claws, climbing down the pile of snow and broken wood, approaching the husky. Her body was unmoving. Everest stood petrified as if the frozen floor had ensnarled her. Her breathing violently shook with the heartbeat. The puppy's entire body paralyzed in terror as the death stalked before her very eyes. Wayne was gone across the lounge. Whoever that voice left her to die, and there was not a single phone to make an attempt to lure it away. Its eyes, its beady, unblinking eyes, stared into hers with such an intensity that its gaze could travel through her skull. The sound of rushing water rumbled in the ceiling, a small drip leaking from the broken sprinkler nozzle. "What?" Everest squeaked, taking a hopeless step back. "What are you?" The Mentagara towered over her, with its half-invisible body twinkling with frost, its pupils shrunk by just a hair, its mouth curling into a wide sadistic grin, the exact same smile that haunted her from the attack of the outpost. It had always been there. For days the Mentagara lurked in the base and broke free from slaughtering the soldiers and wearing their bodies, but no matter what form or body it wore, two parts of itself always remained uncovered: its weaponized trails and its unfazed smile. It loved to sport, letting out its glebe to be the final thing its victims saw before they met with a terrible fate. Even then, the body it currently wore wasn't ideal, but it was helpful against the cold. A loud snap came from the ceiling, followed by several more in all directions. Dozens of snaps, cracks, and pops of blistering metal, breaking under the pressure, screeched at every single angle. Everest screamed as the noise attacked her, covering her head instinctively as the high-pressured water started tearing through the walls. Even the Mentagara hesitated, looking at the side confusion, as if tried to place the sound. A sound of bending wood rose in the air, rising sporadically with the violent torrents of water flooding the inner workings of the building. The realization hit Everest like a rapidly incoming blast. The puppy never had any time to react to what was about to happen. Watching the wall closely, uncertainty befell the Mentagara, the powerful creature taking only a nervous step back. Then everything erupted. Every single surface in the instant, the plaster walls obliterated with so soggy dust, and tidal waves of water smashed out the wood and metal, flooding the floors and caving in the ceiling. Both animals were swept up in the water. Everest launched back and painfully slamming against the vending machine, while the Mentagara was tossed around the room by the floor. Even as the water drained, the rupture pipes above endlessly sprayed water into the room. Already deadly combined with the blizzard, the water began solidifying in seconds, forming into a freezing slush that caught Everest's fur as she tried to stand in the storm. She was encapsulated by ice at the same time. She raced back to the vending machine. The wall around it was shred to bits. The damage just barely exposed the hidden hallway, creating a small opening in the wall just the perfect size for a puppy to slip through. Ignoring her rapidly slowing heartbeat, Everest powered through the freezing fur, pulling herself through the opening. Roaring in all directions, the Mentagara whipped its speared tails into anything that moved, its vision blinded by the ice as its body was soaked in water. Freezing so fast the creature's body crunched with ice as it raced about. Disoriented and fearful, it lunged into the ceiling vent and fled the scene, disappearing into the darkness of the building. She had already crossed onto the dry floor, the site of the explosion well behind her. Her speed gradually slowed to a weak state, the ice coating her fur and drowning out all insulation her body could make. But still she pressed on, the mental image of Jake embracing her being the only piece of light able to keep her going. Jake! She yelled down the plain corridor, taking a small flights of stairs down. Jake, I'm here! The door entered her vision, standing at the end of the hallway, the safe room. Jake, The puppy sped up, icicles forming off her lips. I'm here! She approached the door. I know you're in here. I could smell you, she called into the silence, recognizing the smell of her owner instantly. Such was the average skill for a dog. A smell was unforgettable. Jake, I'm here, She weakly trudged up the door, pushing it open with her nose. Finally, after everything, she was finally here. After all the scares, the horrors, and the colds, she had finally reached the safe room. Her legs were shaking with frozen weakness, the dog running off in pure adrenaline at this point. Passing through the doorway, she walked into the metal-coated room, seeking only the arms of her owner. Her voice gave out, the puppy stopping completely in her tracks. There he was. She stared forward at her owner, finally laying eyes on him after all these hours. But his loving arms never came, his embracing voice never breaking the silence, his warmth never banishing her cold. Standing still, and her world crumbled around her, Everest felt her mind break. Jake?
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.